The day the aliens came changed everything for Earth. They arrived in ships that gleamed like silver in the sunlight, hanging in the sky over every major city. People watched in fear and wonder as the vessels remained motionless for 3 days. On the 4th day, they sent a message. "We are the Galactic Council. We come in peace." The words appeared on every screen across the planet at once. Captain John Carter sat in a military conference room, watching government officials argue about how to respond. As commander of Earth's vast space defense unit, he knew humanity's weapons would be useless if these visitors had bad intentions. "Captain Carter," said General Willis, "you've been selected to meet with them. Your experience with first contact protocols makes you our best choice." John nodded, though his stomach tightened. First contact protocols were just theory until now. No human had ever met an alien before. The meeting took place at a neutral location in Switzerland. John wore his formal uniform and stood tall as the alien ship landed nearby. When the door opened, he got his first look at a member of the Galactic Council. The alien called itself High Counselor Zex Terra. It had blue-gray skin that seemed to shimmer, 4 arms, and eyes that changed color as it spoke. Its translator device turned its clicks and whistles into perfect English. "Captain Carter," it said, "your species shows great promise. The Galactic Council wishes to welcome humans as probationary members." Over the next few days, Zex Terra explained the Council, a federation of 200 intelligent species who shared knowledge, resources, and protection. Earth could join, but would need guidance during a probationary period. "We offer technological advancement beyond your imagination," Zex Terra said. "Medical cures, clean energy, faster than light travel." Most world leaders were eager to accept. Only a few voices urged caution. One of those voices belonged to Lisa Martinez. As the leading xenobiologist at the North American Science Division, she studied the information the Council provided about other member species. "Something doesn't add up," she told John during a private meeting. "Look at these patterns. The newer members all seem to provide resources to the Council, but receive very little in return." John frowned at her data. "You think they're taking advantage of less advanced civilizations." "I think we should be careful," Lisa said. "The Council describes itself as benevolent mentors, but I see signs of a resource-gathering operation with clever marketing." Despite such concerns, Earth's governments voted to accept probationary membership. The Council established an embassy on the Moon and began what they called cultural exchange. Engineers like Lisa were invited to learn about alien technology, though the most advanced systems remained off-limits. "When you're ready," the Council representatives would say. Within months, Council ships began helping humans set up mining operations on Mars and the asteroid belt. The contracts all seemed fair at first glance, with Earth keeping 60% of resources and the Council taking 40% for administrative costs and technology sharing. Council representatives appeared on news programs, at universities, and in government meetings. They always smiled in their own alien ways and spoke of partnership and progress. But John noticed how they steered conversations away from certain topics. Whenever humans asked about exploring beyond the solar system, the aliens would change the subject or cite safety protocols for developing species. 6 months after first contact, John met with Lisa again. She had bags under her eyes from working late, analyzing data from other Council member worlds. "They all follow the same pattern," she said. "First comes the friendly arrival, then resource agreements, then subtle restrictions on independent development." She looked up at him with worried eyes. "John, I don't think we're partners. I think we might be their next harvest." John stared out the window at the distant shape of a Council ship in orbit. It no longer looked beautiful to him. It looked hungry. 3 years passed since Earth joined the Galactic Council. The aliens kept their promise to share some technology. Diseases that once killed millions were now easily cured. Cars and planes ran on clean energy. Life seemed better for most people. But Frank Cooper knew better. As supervisor of the largest mining operation on Mars, He saw the truth behind the council's friendly face. They're taking more than they should, Frank told his assistant as they reviewed the monthly numbers. The agreement says 40% goes to the council, but these figures show they're taking almost 70%. Maybe it's a mistake, his assistant suggested. Frank shook his head. I've tracked it for 6 months. Every shipment, they take more than agreed. When I report it, nothing happens. Frank decided to take his evidence directly to Earth. He filled the data drive with records and caught the next transport home. After landing, he went straight to the Global Resource Committee that oversaw all council trade agreements. The committee chairman, a man who always appeared with council advisors nearby, barely looked at Frank's data. We'll investigate, he said. Leave the drive with us. A week later, Frank received a message saying his evidence had been corrupted and couldn't be recovered. When he checked his backup copies, the files were mysteriously empty. Meanwhile, Susan Miller sat in her small office at Earth Intelligence Agency. As an analyst specialized in data patterns, her job was to monitor communications between Earth and Council ships. She noticed strange gaps in the transmissions, periods when official channels went dark, but energy signatures showed active communication was happening. Susan began collecting her own private database of council activities. She hid her work carefully, using old computers not connected to any network. What she discovered scared her. Category 3 Resource World, RAID 1 intercepted message. Human civilization suitable for extended harvesting period before full extraction. Susan didn't know what full extraction meant, but it sounded nothing like the partnership the council had promised. She needed to find others who suspected the truth. Through careful research, she identified people who had raised concerns about the council, people whose warnings had been ignored or silenced. One name stood out, Lisa Martinez, the xenobiologist who had been given access to council biological databases, but was recently removed from her position for unauthorized research. Susan arranged to meet Lisa at a coffee shop far from any council monitoring stations. I've been expecting someone to contact me, Lisa said when they met. The council doesn't allow questions. That's why I lost my job. Susan slid a paper across the table. She didn't trust digital communication. It contained the Category 3 classification she had discovered. Lisa's face went pale. This confirms my worst fears. I found references to other species that were classified this way. They no longer exist as independent civilizations. Some are extinct entirely. As they talked, more pieces fell into place. The Council's protection was really control. Their guidance was preventing human advancement that might threaten Council dominance. Have you noticed we can't build ships to explore beyond our solar system? Lisa asked. Every time our engineers get close, the Council finds reasons to deny materials or technology we need. Susan nodded. They cite safety concerns or claim we're not ready. We need to find more people who see the truth, Lisa said. People in positions to help. Susan thought of the mining supervisor, whose evidence had disappeared. I know where to start, she said. By the end of the month, a small group began meeting in secret. Susan, Lisa, Frank, and others who had glimpsed behind the Council's mask of friendship. They called themselves Terran Sovereignty. Earth doesn't belong to the Council, Susan told the group during their first meeting, and we won't let them take what isn't theirs. What they didn't know was how little time they had. In the Council's grand meeting chamber on the other side of the galaxy, Earth had just been moved from initial harvesting to accelerated resource extraction. The Terran Sovereignty Group grew slowly but steadily. They met in old buildings with thick walls that blocked signals, in caves deep underground, or in remote cabins far from cities. They never used electronic communications that the Council might monitor. We need proof other people will believe, Susan said during one meeting. 20 members sat in a circle in an abandoned subway tunnel. Most humans still think the Council is helping us. Frank nodded. And we need weapons. If they discover us, they'll eliminate us. Lisa looked up from her notes. I might have a solution for both problems. There's another species that survived Council harvesting. They're called the Vexeri. She showed the group images of tall, thin beings with gray skin and large, dark eyes. The Council classified their planet as Category 3, just like Earth. They harvested resources until the Vexeri were nearly extinct. A few escaped and have been hiding since then. How do we find them? Susan asked. I've been analyzing Council flight patterns, Lisa explained. Several ships make regular trips to an asteroid belt that has no official mining operation. I believe that's where the Vexeri survivors are hiding. John Carter, who had been quiet until now, stood up. I can get us there. I still have contacts in Earth's defense forces who question the Council. The plan took weeks to arrange. John secured a small transport ship that wouldn't attract attention. Susan created false flight plans. Frank gathered supplies they might need for trade. Meanwhile, Greg Phillips, a military engineer who had joined their group, worked on another important project. In his secret workshop, he studied pieces of Council technology the group had managed to collect. Their weapons systems aren't as advanced as they want us to think, Greg told Susan as he showed her his work. The basic principles are similar to ours, just more efficient. I think I can adapt our weapons to match theirs. Susan smiled for the first time in weeks. That could give us a fighting chance. The journey to the asteroid belt took 8 days. They needed to move slowly to avoid drawing attention. When they arrived, they found nothing but empty space and floating rocks. Are you sure this is the place? John asked Lisa. Before she could answer, their ship's sensors picked up an energy signature. A section of what looked like a normal asteroid shimmed and disappeared, revealing an entrance to a hidden base. A voice came through their communication system, speaking broken English. Humans, why come here? Lisa spoke carefully into the transmitter. We seek allies against the Galactic Council. Like you, our world has been classified as Category 3. Silence followed. Then, dock at entrance. Weapons stay on ship. Inside the asteroid, they found a small colony of about 50 Vexeri. Their leader, who called himself Nex, explained how the Council had stripped their homeworld of resources, causing environmental collapse. When we protested, Council called it rebellion, Nex said. His large eyes seemed filled with old pain. They used weapons that killed millions. Few escaped. Why didn't other Council species help you? Susan asked. Council controls information, Nex explained. Tell other worlds we died from natural disaster. Same story many times with many worlds. John stepped forward. We want to fight back before that happens to Earth. Can you help us? Nex studied the humans for a long moment. Hard to trust. Many species betray others to gain Council favor. We brought evidence, Lisa said, showing Nex the data she had collected about Earth's classification and the Council's real activities. And we brought trade goods, not demands. The Vexeri whispered among themselves. Finally, Nex turned back to the humans. We help. Have Council weapons and ships taken during escape. Can teach humans to use. As they began to form their alliance, Susan thought about Earth. Council representatives were now working directly inside human governments. New laws restricted free movement for safety. Council ships patrolled Earth's skies for protection. Time was running out. But now, finally, they had a chance. 6 months after meeting the Vexeri, the Terran sovereignty had grown stronger. They had smuggled Council technology back to Earth. Greg and his engineering team worked day and night to understand and adapt it. But the Council was making bolder moves. We require expanded mining rights on Mars, said the Council representative during a global broadcast. The alien's voice sounded friendly, but left no room for argument. The minerals are necessary for technologies we wish to share with humans. Earth's Global Council, now filled with politicians who favored the aliens, nodded in agreement. Only a few voices spoke against the demand. We should take time to study the environmental impact, said one brave official. The current mining operations are already causing problems for the Mars colonies. The council representative's eyes flashed with colors that humans had learned meant anger, though its voice remained calm. Delays are unnecessary. We have studied the impact ourselves. The Global Council asked for 1 week to consider. That night, an explosion rocked the largest human settlement on Mars. 15 people died, and many more were injured. News reports called it a terrorist attack. The Council quickly offered help. "Our protection forces can secure your colonies," said the same representative who had demanded the mining rights. This tragedy shows that humans need our guidance more than ever. In his small apartment near the old Kennedy Space Center, John Carter watched the broadcast with growing anger. Since returning from the Vexari asteroid, he had been keeping a low profile while helping the Resistance. His communication device buzzed. It was Susan, using their secure channel. "Did you see the news?" she asked. "Yes," John replied. "Convenient timing for the council." "Too convenient," Susan said. Lisa analyzed the explosion pattern. "It matches council weapons, not any human explosive." John's hands tightened into fists. "They're killing us to manipulate us." "We have proof," Susan said. "Satellite images, radiation signatures. We need to release it publicly. You're still respected, John. People will listen to you." The next day, John held a press conference. Reporters filled the room, curious why the famous first contact captain who had disappeared from public view was suddenly speaking out. "The Mars explosion was not a terrorist attack," John said, his voice steady. "I have evidence that council weapons caused it. The council is creating problems so they can offer solutions that give them more control." He showed the evidence on large screens behind him. The room erupted with questions. Before John could answer, council representatives entered the room. "Captain Carter is unwell," one announced. "He has been exposed to a rare Mars pathogen that causes paranoia and delusions." Security forces moved toward John. He recognized their blank expressions, humans who had been given council loyalty treatments. "Look at the evidence," John shouted as they surrounded him. "The council is not here to help us." The security team grabbed him. As they dragged him away, he saw council medical staff preparing an injection. "He will be treated and re-educated," the council representative told the confused reporters, "for his own safety." But the Terran sovereignty had planned for this possibility. As John was loaded into a transport vehicle, an explosion erupted nearby. A real human-made one, carefully designed not to hurt anyone but to create confusion. In the chaos, Resistance members disguised as medical staff took John to a different vehicle and sped away. By the time the council realized what had happened, John was on a small, fast ship leaving Earth's atmosphere. The ship used technology the Vexari had given them, making it invisible to council scanners. Back on Earth, the council declared John a dangerous criminal. They increased their protection forces around human settlements on Earth and Mars. The Global Council, now fully under alien influence, accepted these forces without question. "We've lost the public battle," Susan told the Resistance leaders at their hidden base in the Rocky Mountains. "But we haven't lost the war." Now we move to Phase 2. 1 year after the Mars incident, Earth was barely recognizable. Council protection forces had established security zones in every major city. Humans needed special permits to travel between zones. Those who complained disappeared for re-education. Susan walked through the crowded streets of what used to be Chicago. Council ships flew overhead, their lights scanning the crowds below. She wore a plain gray coat and kept her head down, just another face in the crowd. Her destination was a small medical research facility where her newest contact worked. Amy Rodriguez was a geneticist who had been recruited to work on council research projects. "Thank you for meeting me," Susan said when they were alone in Amy's lab. The room was one of the few places not monitored by council devices, thanks to special equipment the Resistance had installed. Amy looked nervous. "I had to talk to someone." "What they're asking us to do." She shook her head. "It started with simple blood tests. The council wanted samples from humans with certain genetic markers. They said it was to help cure diseases, but that's not what they're using it for, Susan guessed. No. Last week I found files they didn't mean for human eyes. Amy pulled out a small data drive. They're developing weapons targeted to human genetic codes. Weapons that could kill specific groups of humans without harming others. Susan felt cold fear spread through her body. Why would they need that? I think. Amy's voice trembled. I think they're planning to keep only the humans they find useful. The rest will be eliminated. That same day, in the hidden resistance base in the mountains, John Carter met with the other leaders. Their numbers had grown to over 5,000 members worldwide. The Council has announced that Earth's probationary period is extended indefinitely. Lisa told the group. They cite our primitive tendencies and lack of proper development as reasons. Frank slammed his fist on the table. They never intended to make us full members. It was all a lie from the start. Greg entered the room, his face showing rare excitement. We've done it, he said. The weapons are ready. For months, Greg's team had been adapting Vexari and Council technology to work with human systems. They had created weapons that could penetrate Council ship shields and disrupt their communication networks. How many can we produce? John asked. Enough to arm ourselves in major cities, Greg replied. The Vexari have been helping with production in their asteroid base. John nodded. Then it's time. We move next week. Before they could act, the Council made another aggressive move. Several Earth nations had protested the extended probationary period. Without warning, all communication with off-world colonies was cut off. We regret to inform you that a solar storm has damaged communication relays, announced a Council representative on Global News. We are working to restore contact with Mars and other colonies. But the Resistance had their own communication methods. Reports from Mars painted a different picture. Council ships had surrounded the colonies and were removing humans who had opposed Council mining operations. They're not even pretending anymore, Susan told John during their secure call. They're taking people who disagree with them. John's face was grim on the small screen. Then we don't wait. We move now. Alert all cells. Operation Pushback begins tonight. Across the planet, Resistance members prepared for battle. In hidden bunkers, they distributed the new weapons. In major cities, they positioned teams near Council facilities. The Vexari sent word that their ships were ready to join the fight from space. Years of planning, gathering allies, and developing technology were about to pay off. As night fell over North America, John looked at the stars, knowing that somewhere up there, Council leaders were confident in their control over Earth. That's about to change, he whispered. Operation Pushback began at midnight. Across Earth, Resistance fighters moved like shadows toward Council facilities. Years of living under alien rule had taught humans to be quiet, to avoid notice. Now they used those skills to fight back. In New York, Frank led a team of 20 fighters toward the Council's main communication center. They carried weapons that looked like ordinary tools but contained Greg's adapted alien technology. Remember, aim for their shield generators first, Frank whispered as they approached the building. Council guards stood at the entrance, their weapons glowing with blue energy. The Resistance fighters moved into position. Frank gave the signal, and they fired. The new weapons worked perfectly. Instead of bouncing off shields, their energy blasts hit the guards directly. Within minutes, the entrance was clear. Move in, Frank ordered. His team rushed inside to plant the devices that would disrupt Council communications across the eastern United States. Similar scenes played out in London, Tokyo, Sydney, and dozens of other cities. The Resistance had spent years building a global network, and now it activated all at once. In orbit above Earth, Vexari ships appeared suddenly, using their cloaking technology to surprise the Council vessels. The aliens who had nearly been wiped out by the Council now fought alongside humans to prevent the same fate from happening to Earth. John Carter commanded one of these ships. The Vexari had taught him to pilot it, and now he led a squadron toward the Council's main orbital platform. They're responding, said a Vex-Airy crew member as Council ships moved to intercept them. "Weapons charging. Evasive pattern," John ordered. "Remember, their ships are stronger but less maneuverable. Use that against them." The battle in space was visible from Earth's surface. Flashes of light that looked like new stars being born and dying in seconds. On the ground, Susan led the most important mission of all. With a small team, she infiltrated the Council's lunar embassy, the heart of alien control on Earth. "We have 10 minutes before they realize their security systems are down," she told her team as they moved through dark corridors. "Get to the main broadcast center." While other resistance cells fought to take control of Council facilities, Susan's mission was to tell the truth. They carried with them all the evidence they had gathered over years. Proof of the Council's true intentions, their history of exploiting other worlds, and their plans for Earth. Guards appeared ahead. Amy, the geneticist who had joined their team, fired a special weapon Greg had designed specifically for her mission. It released a gas that affected only Council species, making them unconscious without harming humans. 5 minutes left, Susan said as they reached the broadcast center. They quickly connected their data drives to the Council's systems. Across Earth, and on colonies throughout the solar system, every screen suddenly changed. The Council's regular propaganda disappeared, replaced by hard evidence of their deception. People saw the truth about Mars, about the bioweapons being developed against them, about other worlds the Council had destroyed. They saw the classified documents that labeled Earth as a resource to be harvested. In his command ship, John watched as Council vessels began to break formation. The broadcast was reaching their crews too, many of whom had never known the truth about their leaders' actions. "They're retreating," the Vex-Airy navigator reported with surprise. "Several Council ships are standing down." But the high command of the Council responded with fury. A massive battleship moved into Earth orbit, weapons charging. To the primitive humans who dare rebel, came the voice of High Counselor Zexterra across all channels. "You have proven your species too dangerous to be allowed continued existence. Earth will now serve as an example to any who would defy the Council." John's navigator looked at him with large, worried eyes. "That ship carries planet-killer weapons." John opened a channel to all resistance forces. "This is what we prepared for. Execute Plan Phoenix." Now, Plan Phoenix was the Resistance's last resort, developed in secret over the past year. As John gave the order, hidden systems activated across Earth and throughout the solar system. On the ground, Greg's engineering team had placed special devices at key points around the planet. These devices now powered up, creating an energy field that surrounded Earth like a protective bubble. "Shield at 60% and rising," reported one of Greg's assistants from their hidden command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. In space, John directed the Vex-Airy ships to form a defensive line between Earth and the Council battleship. "Buy us time," he told them. "The shield needs 3 minutes to reach full power." The Council battleship fired its first weapon, a beam of energy that could crack a planet's crust. It hit the partially formed shield and broke through, striking the Pacific Ocean. The impact created massive waves, but Earth itself remained intact. "Shield at 80%, Greg reported over the communication channel. 2 more minutes. High Counselor Zexterra's voice boomed across all channels again. "Surrender now, and we will spare your major population centers. Continue to resist, and we will reduce your world to ash." Several Council ships that had been part of the blockade suddenly changed position. Their weapons turned toward the High Counselor's battleship. "This is Captain Lorne of the Council ship Daybreak," came a new voice. "We refuse to participate in planetary genocide. The broadcast has shown us the truth about our leaders." More Council ships joined Captain Lorne's rebellion. Nearly a third of the fleet now stood against their own leadership. Zexterra was furious. "Traitors, you will be executed along with the humans." The battleship fired again, this time at the rebel Council ships. 2 exploded immediately, but the others returned fire. "Shield at 95%, Greg announced. "Almost there." John ordered all Vexeri and human ships to pull back behind Earth's shield. As they did, the Council battleship prepared its most powerful weapon, the Planet Killer. "Energy readings off the scale," reported John's navigator. "They're going to fire everything they have." "Let them," John said with a grim smile. "That's exactly what we want." The Planet Killer fired, a beam of destructive energy wider than a city. It struck Earth's now completed shield and stopped. For a moment, the energy seemed to hover at the shield's edge. Then, incredibly, it began to flow backward. "It's working," Greg shouted over the comm. "The shield is reflecting the energy." Plan Phoenix wasn't just a defense system. It was a mirror designed to capture enemy weapons' fire and send it back with even greater force. The reflected beam hit the Council battleship squarely. The massive vessel shuddered, then began to break apart as its own weapon tore through its hull. In the confusion, John led a small strike team onto the failing battleship. They fought their way through damaged corridors, filled with smoke and desperate Council guards. "The command center is ahead," said the Vexeri warrior accompanying John. "But our ships report more Council reinforcements arriving from deeper space." John nodded. "Then we need to end this now." They burst into the command center to find High Counselor Zexterra surrounded by guards. The alien leader's skin had turned almost black with rage, its eyes flashing dangerous colors. "You primitives," Zexterra hissed. "You cannot comprehend what you've done. The Council has ruled for 10,000 years. Hundreds of worlds serve us." "They don't serve you," John replied, his weapon aimed steadily. "You take from them until nothing remains. That ends today." More explosions rocked the ship. John's team quickly overcame the guards. Zexterra found itself alone, facing the humans it had planned to harvest. "You think capturing me ends this?" The High Counselor sneered. "The full might of the Council will descend on your world. You will beg for mercy before the end." Susan's voice came through John's communicator. "Actually, that's not going to happen. Our broadcast reached every Council world. Your empire is falling apart as we speak." John stepped forward. "You pushed too far, Counselor, and now you've lost everything." 3 months after the battle, representatives from 28 species gathered on a neutral space station. The old Council chamber had been redesigned. Instead of raised seats for high-ranking Council members looking down on others, all seats were arranged in a circle. All were equal here. John Carter sat beside Susan Miller, representing Earth. Nearby sat Nex and other Vexeri survivors. Captain Lorne and the Council ship captains who had rebelled were there too. Species that had been exploited for centuries now had a voice. "The old Galactic Council is finished," John said as he opened the meeting. "Its leaders await trial for crimes against countless worlds. Now we must decide what comes next." The discussions lasted for days. Some wanted to return to their home systems and cut all ties with other species. Others saw value in cooperation, but feared any central authority. "We must learn from the past," Susan told the gathering. "The old Council began with good intentions, but became corrupt when power was concentrated among few species." Lisa Martinez, who had been studying records from the Council archives, stood to address the group. "The Council survived for 10,000 years by turning species against each other. They made us fear our neighbors while they harvested our worlds." She displayed images showing how Council policies had deliberately created conflicts between neighboring systems. "They didn't want us to see the pattern. If we had talked to each other, we would have discovered the truth centuries ago." Captain Lorne, whose rebellion had helped turn the tide of battle, spoke next. "Many of us served the Council believing we were helping maintain peace. We were lied to. Our ships enforced rules that benefited only the High Council. By the final day, a new structure emerged. They would form an alliance of free worlds. Each species would govern itself, but all would share information openly. Trade would be fair. Technology would be exchanged. No species would be classified as primitive or denied knowledge. Most importantly, Any world could choose to join or leave the alliance at any time. As the meeting ended, representatives signed the new charter. The first signature belonged to Nex, the Vexari leader whose people had almost been wiped out by the old council. "Today begins healing," Nex said simply. Back on Earth, Frank Cooper oversaw the dismantling of council mining operations on Mars. With the aliens gone, humans could rebuild their colonies properly, with care for the environment. Greg Phillips and his engineering team worked with scientists from other worlds, sharing the technology they had developed during the Resistance. The shield system that had saved Earth was now being adapted to protect other planets from natural disasters, like asteroids or solar flares. Amy Rodriguez led efforts to reverse the damage Council bioweapons research had done. Her work helped save several species that had been targeted for extinction. 1 year after the fall of the Council, John and Susan stood on the observation deck of the first true human long-range exploration ship. The vessel had been built with help from their new allies, but designed and crewed by humans. Through the large window, they watched Earth grow smaller as the ship prepared for its first jump beyond the solar system. Humans were finally free to explore the galaxy as equals, not as subjects. "Do you think we'll find more worlds the Council damage?" Susan asked. "Probably," John replied. "But now we can help them rebuild, like others helped us." Susan looked out at the stars spreading before them, countless points of light representing worlds that were no longer forbidden. The Council thought they were superior because they had more technology, more ships. They never understood what makes a civilization truly strong. John nodded. Cooperation, compassion, standing together against threats instead of exploiting each other. The ship's captain announced they were ready for the jump. As stars blurred around them, John thought about how far humanity had come. From first contact to fighting for survival to helping build a new galactic community in just a few years. The Galactic Council had pushed too far. In doing so, they had not only lost everything they had built over thousands of years, but had united their former victims into something stronger and more just than the Council had ever been. Ahead lay a universe of possibilities, and humanity would face it alongside their new allies, as equals, not as servants.